Hey everyone, welcome back to Reddit Reader. I'm Alex, and if you're new here, this is where we dive deep into the most compelling, dramatic, and sometimes absolutely heartbreaking stories from Reddit that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about family, loyalty, and politics. Before we jump in, let me paint you a picture that's going to make your blood boil. Imagine spending 7 years of your life, 7 years, building your dream business from nothing. Sleepless nights, financial stress, sacrificing everything to build something meaningful. You're finally seeing success, maybe thinking about early retirement, living the American dream, then boom, overnight, a single policy change destroys everything you've worked for. But here's the part that's going to make you want to throw your phone across the room. The people who voted for that policy change? Your own parents. The people who raised you, who are supposed to have your back no matter what. Today's story is about what happens when politics stops being abstract and starts tearing families apart in the most devastating way possible. So buckle up, because this one's going to hit different. This story comes from a 40-year-old man who posted in one of the relationship advice subreddits, and guys, when I first read this, I had to put my phone down and just sit with it for a minute. Here's what he wrote. I have owned and managed an electrical contracting company specializing in solar for the last 7 years. I worked my ass off to build a profitable company with integrity. Now pause right there. Anyone who's ever started a business, and I mean really started from scratch, you know this isn't just a job. This is his identity, his legacy, his baby. 7 years in the electrical industry, specializing in solar. Do you know how much expertise that takes? How many early mornings, how many weekends sacrificed? How many times he probably had to choose between paying himself or keeping the business afloat? And he says he built it with integrity. That matters. In an industry where you could easily cut corners, overcharge people, or use subpar materials, this guy chose to do things the right way. That tells you everything about his character. Things were going great, and I could see a reasonably short runway to retirement or semi-retirement. This is the American dream, right here. Work hard, build something meaningful, and maybe, just maybe, you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor while you're still young enough to appreciate it. He's 40 years old and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Can you imagine that feeling of accomplishment? Then Trump took away all incentives for renewables and replaced them with tax breaks for fossil fuels. And just like that, everything changes. Now, I'm not here to debate politics, but think about this from a purely business perspective. Imagine if the government suddenly removed all the incentives that made your industry viable. If you're in solar and suddenly there are no tax credits, no rebates, no government support, but oil and gas companies are getting massive breaks, your customers disappear overnight because solar installations just became financially unviable for most people. This isn't just about losing some profits. This is about watching your entire industry get kneecapped while your competition gets a massive advantage. And he says he is now in the process of selling his business and taking a position working for a large company and making less. Let that sink in. He went from being an entrepreneur, a business owner, someone building his own destiny, to having to sell everything he's worked for and go work for someone else for less money after 7 years of building something. Do you know what it feels like to have to sell your business? It's not just about the money, though losing income definitely hurts. It's about losing your identity, your independence, your dreams. It's about having to start over at 40 when you thought you had it figured out. But here's where this story goes from heartbreaking to absolutely devastating. My parents don't seem to understand that their decision to vote for Trump and his ilk has directly impacted my life in an extremely negative way. Stop. Just stop and think about this. His own parents, the people who are supposed to love him unconditionally, who watched him build this business, who probably bragged to their friends about their successful entrepreneur son, they voted for the policies that destroyed his livelihood. And they don't even understand the connection. They don't see that their vote had real consequences for their own child. Can you imagine trying to explain to your parents that their political choice literally ruined your life? How do you even start that conversation? Hey mom, hey dad, remember how proud you were of my business? Well, the person you voted for just destroyed it. And then comes the question that's tearing him apart. AIO for telling them I don't want to speak with them until they can at least acknowledge the harm they have caused me. Now, this is where it gets incredibly complex, and honestly, I've been thinking about this story for days because there's no clear right answer here. From the parents' perspective, and I'm trying to be fair here, they probably had no idea that their vote would directly impact their son's business. They might have been voting based on other issues that mattered to them, the economy, immigration, social issues, whatever. Most people don't think about the ripple effects of policy changes on specific industries, especially when it comes to their own family members. But here's what gets me. It's not just that they voted for policies that hurt him, it's that they don't seem to understand the connection. That suggests he's tried to explain it to them, and they're either not getting it or they're dismissing his concerns. That's what would break my heart if I were in his shoes. Because asking for acknowledgement isn't asking them to change their entire political worldview. He's not saying, you have to vote differently next time. He's just saying, can you at least acknowledge that your vote had consequences for me personally? That seems like a pretty reasonable ask from your own parents. But cutting off contact, that's nuclear. That's relationship-ending stuff. And once you cross that line, it's really hard to come back from it. Is it worth potentially losing your relationship with your parents forever over this? But on the other hand, how do you maintain a relationship with people who actively voted to harm your livelihood and then refuse to even acknowledge what they did? How do you sit at Christmas dinner and pretend everything's fine when their political choices literally forced you to sell your business? I keep going back and forth on this one. Part of me thinks he has every right to be furious and demand some acknowledgement, but another part of me thinks family relationships are too precious to throw away over politics, even when those politics have real consequences. What's really tragic is that this is happening in families all across America right now. Politics has become so polarized that it's literally tearing families apart. And in this case, it's not even about abstract political principles. It's about real financial harm to their own son. The comments on this post were wild, by the way. Some people were saying he should cut them off completely, that they showed their true colors and he's better off without them. Others were saying he's being dramatic, that family is more important than politics, that he should try to rebuild the relationship. But here's what really stuck with me from the comments. Someone pointed out that this isn't really about politics at all. It's about empathy. It's about whether your parents can put aside their political beliefs long enough to acknowledge that their child is hurting. And if they can't do that, then maybe the relationship was already broken. So here's what I want to know from you guys, because I genuinely cannot figure out the right answer here. If you were in this man's shoes, if your parents' vote directly cost you your business and your livelihood, and they refuse to even acknowledge the harm they caused, would you cut contact, or would you find a way to work it through because family is family? And for those of you saying just talk to them, what happens when talking doesn't work? What happens when they refuse to see the connection between their vote and your suffering? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the kind of situation where I think we all need different perspectives. Maybe some of you have been through something similar, or maybe you're parents yourself and can see the other side of this. If this story made you think, if it made you feel something, smash that like button. It really does help the channel grow, and it lets me know that you want more deep dives into these complex human situations that don't have easy answers. And if you're new here, welcome to Reddit Reader, where we don't just read stories, we really dig into what makes people tick, what tears families apart, and what brings them back together. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a story, because trust me, we've got some absolutely wild ones coming up that are going to make this look simple.